Hey, my friends. Over the last few days, I've been researching all the different types of handguns out there that would be, in my opinion, more suitable for home defense. It's a question I get quite often. What would you recommend for personal defense in the home? Would it be a smaller gun, a larger gun, revolvers or semi-automatics? And of course, we're not talking about, long guns here. We're just talking about handguns in general. So I think that you have to find a caliber that's going to be controllable, So a lot of people say, 357 Magnum is the minimum that I would have, or 10 millimeter for home defense. I want something that has extreme knockdown power. And that's all good and everything, but you may be in a situation that you have people living in the building with you. It could be an apartment building, or even if it's, your home, you may have kids in the next room or something, and you may not want, a really, really powerful gun. And so what are some options? Well, there's all kinds of ammunition options. We won't get into that today, but I think just a general consensus that is going to be adequate enough, and it's not going to be too heavy in recoil, and it'll give you, for the most part, a pretty good magazine capacity. And there's going to be a lot of different options to pick from in terms of makes and models. Would be a 9mm handgun, a semi-automatic handgun that's going to be, pretty full size. It doesn't have to be a full size. It could be a compact, but I certainly would not do a subcompact for your dedicated home defense handgun. A Glock 19 is probably one of the smaller sizes I would go. I think probably something like a Glock 17 would be more ideal. But that's up to you to figure out. Everybody's hand sizes are different. Everybody has a different preference. Talking about like Glocks, for example, the Glock 17 just fits my hand better than the 19. Because I have big hands. Some people have hands larger than I, and they have to have the 17. The 19 is just kind of a joke. So, you get to a point that you have to just be honest with yourself and say, hey, what really is going to fulfill my needs? And for the most part, people want to have a decent magazine capacity, and that typically translates to 15 rounds or more. And they want to have some way to mount a light or a laser, at least a light. And that typically means that there's some type of rail system on your handgun. They want some decent sights or the availability to put them on. So at least some type of option to have night sights. And I think that's really important to have night sights. Some people even want to put a red dot, and that's great too if you're into that. So, you're going to have to look for a platform that can accept that or comes with one of those. And basically overall, you're going to have to just be okay with the price. The overall size of the barrel and everything really doesn't make a lot of difference, because we're talking about a gun that's going to pretty much just live in a safe somewhere in your house until you need it, or it's hidden somewhere until you need it. So really size, as long as it fits your hand good, it doesn't really matter. And even weight, it doesn't really matter. Now, when you're, once again, talking about a carry gun, size and weight matters, and it's like one of the top factors, of making the choice to even buy those. But okay, let's jump into the list here. I've kind of whittled it down from about 65 models to about 20 here. So I got the top 20, in my opinion, that are the best overall combat style home defense handguns. It's controversial. These are my opinions. Of course, it's all subjective to some degree, but I did take a really good look at what people have said about each one of these. I read a lot of articles, watched a lot of videos, pros and cons, and just kind of pull from a bunch of experience over the decades, handling firearms. And I really think this is a pretty good list. And you may say, well, a few of those on the list are very new offerings. Are you even sure that they work? I mean, yes, I'm not saying that all these are completely tried and true, but there's a very, very high probability that it's good to go, just because of the company that we're talking about and the people who have tried them out since they've been out have said, hey, these are really good options here. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into it, and I'll just tell you what I think are the top 20 best overall handguns for home defense. And the first is Steyr. The Steyr A2 MF. This is their newer modular frame offering. It's awesome. These are completely underrated firearms. And once again, all these are 9mm. The next is FMK9 C1 and G2. So this is the second generation. Apparently, they got all the bugs worked out from their first generation. A lot of people don't trust them still. So this is controversial, but at the same time, I don't see that these are really bad offerings now. They kind of got things worked out for the most part, and I think we're good to go. They're a little bit cheaper than a Glock, and if you can't afford a Glock, but they kind of feel like a Glock and they look like a Glock. The next is the FN 509. I put down the tactical model, but you could go with other 509 models. They even have a 509 compact, and it's the same slide length as the standard size. It's just basically just a little bit shorter grip. In this case, I would not go with that compact. Just go with the full size. The next is the Grand Power P1 MK12. And you don't typically see a lot of these out there. In fact, in my area, I've never seen these in the gun shops. So I don't know if these are just a little bit more rare, but if you can find one of these and you get to try it out, you might like this. They seem to be like getting rave reviews. The next is the Sphinx SDP Compact. In particular, the one I like the most is the Alpha Wolf model. Just really kind of sleek, low profile guns, but they tend to work from what I've read. The next is the Stoeger STR9. This is a newer offering, but there has been some testing on these, and it just passes with flying colors. But you may want to wait a little bit, though, if you're looking at this particular model, because it is so new. But it's something to kind of keep your eyes on, something to keep on your radar, just because the price, from what I've heard, is just unbelievable. The street price is going to be around $300 or less. And this is actually a pretty well-made gun. It really got my attention. The next is the Walther PPQ. In particular, the one I thought was really kind of jazzy and cool was the Q4 TAC model. Once again, you won't have to go that extreme. You can just get a standard PPQ full size and go with that. But really nice gun. And these are really well known for just ergonomics. The grip is one of the most comfortable grips, the most natural feeling grips. Also, it's one of the nicest triggers right out of the box that you can get, in my opinion. The next is the Smith & Wesson M&P 9 M2.0, and I'm talking about the full size. You can get whatever color you want. I think they have some now that have the red dots. That's up to you if you want that. And they're really nice guns, very ergonomic as well. They shoot excellent, very high quality fit and finish, and good quality materials. I have a few things that I don't like about it, like the front serrations, kind of a little bit gimmicky. I don't really like the whole process of how to switch out the grip panels or the modules for the grip. I have some concerns about some of that, but overall, I think it's decent if you can get over some of the little hangups. So yeah, Smith & Wesson has a lot of other offerings as well, but that's just the one that really kind of got my attention with them. When it comes to Beretta, I really had to include two on there because it was like, wow, the M9 is just, it's a proven platform. But for me, I really prefer the A3. So you got the M9A3 is just really a more modern, version of the M9 original. And I really enjoy also the newer offering that's been out for a couple years now. And they have different sizes. I would go with the full size combat version, but it's the APX, the Beretta APX. It's very, very cool looking. And so, there's all kind of torture tests out there on this gun, and it does pretty well. So overall, I think it's a neat gun. It's not really expensive. They're somewhat comparable with Glocks in terms of price. Sometimes you can even get them cheaper than Glocks. So it's basically, pretty interesting offering from Beretta. It's a very modern looking gun. The next is the CZ-P10F or the P10F. This CZ is... man, a lot of people follow this gun. I mean, there's like a whole cult following when it comes to this. And there's all kind of variations of this too. It seems to be kind of a fairly simple gun as well, but they're made very well from what I can see. And you get a lot of bang for the buck. It's not too over the top expensive. The next brand, and I included two on this one too, is because there's so much, dialogue about people using these, and they're tried and true. And that's the H&K VP9 Tactical and the USP Tactical. Now, that USP Tactical goes back quite a while. It's an older variant, but they still make them. And of course, you don't have to get the actual tactical versions. You can get them a little bit more plain or standardized. But yet, a lot of people swear by these. They are good looking guns. I'm not going to lie. They're just one of those things that, it's kind of a preference. But if it fits your hand, you might like these. The next is the Ruger American gun. I personally just hate the look of this gun. And at the same time, people that have them and shoot them and reviewed them, it's like they work, and they work really well. So, they're not that expensive. Sometimes they're in my area for prices that you kind of almost don't understand how it could be that cheap. But it may be that no one wants them because of how they look, and so they have a hard time selling them. But it's just an offering, that if you don't have a lot of money and if you like that look or you like that brand and you want that, it's definitely not a bad option. SIG. The SIG P226, that's a classic. It has to be on the list. But what about the P320? I mean, all the controversy, all the problems in the last few years, just a mess. I do believe they got pretty much all of it sorted out with the triggers and the drop safety and all, the springs, and they had to fix this and that. Didn't seem like they had a bunch of problems with their military version of this, but I did hear about some triggers breaking and just some things like this little things here and there that have happened. But, in the first few years of any kind of massive release of a firearm, you're going to have some problems, especially when you kind of make some tweaks and stuff, especially for a military contract, things are going to happen. So I'm not totally anti-SIG, but I'm real leery about ever getting a P320. That's just me, you just, when you see so many problems, even when they're fixed, you just kind of wonder if there's other problems that haven't been found yet. But anyways, yeah, I mean, some people like to get the actual military version, which is called the M17. That is the P320 military variant. So they have those if you're into that. Now, Glocks. Let's just jump right into it. This is probably my favorite brand on the list just because of my experience with them. The Glock 19 is obviously the most popular. That's a given, and it works. You just have to figure out what generation you prefer. I prefer the third generation, when it comes to just the plain 19 or 17. And I'd say that both of them are great. When it comes to the 19X, if you don't mind the coloration, man, it seems like it's a very good offering, and it could definitely be used for home defense. I mean, in fact, it would be pretty ideal. Put a really good light on there. I think it comes with night sights if I remember correctly, but it has good sights on it, and it just seems like it's a pretty good option. It has really good capability in terms of, being just really streamlined and refined. The magazine capability is above average. It's just pretty decent overall. So what is my favorite? Well, I don't have one of these, but the new Glock 45, also known as the G45, which confuses everybody because it's a 9mm, but they're calling it the Glock 45. This is cool. And it has basically the layout that I want. I need that larger grip. So I love having like that Glock 17 grip, but I also like the 19 slide. It's nothing really wrong with the longer 17 slide, but to me though, it's just, there's a better balance with that handgun when it's made up like the Glock 45 is. And I do have a couple little things that I would like to see changed, like the finish is just a little too smooth. I'm not saying that their application and what they're using as a finish is bad, but why would you use a smooth material as a finish for a gun slide? It just sometimes Glock does things that I can't figure it out. They get so close to their perfection, but they never get to perfection. And it's like there's so many different models too of things. And it's almost the more you dig with the Glock, the more it's easy to get confused about what you even would consider from Glock. I'm at the point now, I'm just like, even though I think that probably the Glock 45 would probably be the best overall gun, it just might be simpler if you're a new person, if you don't want to go through all the headaches to kind of figure that out, or to trust another person, to just maybe go with like the Beretta APX or something, or just something, you know, that's real simple. Like there's just basically one variation of it. You can get it in different sizes, but there's just one type. And it's not really controversial in the sense that, you know, do I want, you know, finger grooves, or do I not want finger grooves? What generation? I mean, think about it. Glock actually still makes Gen 3 Glocks, and Gen 4 and Gen 5. And then they got these in betweens, these X variants, you know, 19X, 43X. And then you got all these in betweens. It's like the 45 is like another version of the X. It's like, I don't know. It's almost like Glock has gone a little crazy. You know, and it's like the madness over there. I mean, I know they're trying to fill in all these little niches, and I think they're listening to the customers too much almost, because they're just going hog wild. And, I mean, I like choices though. I'm not against what they're doing in some sense, but it's like, good Lord, you know, it's just, it's a little crazy, even though I do like the Glock 45 and I'm glad they did it. It's just, some of the execution is so close to perfect, and then you have little things that can throw you off. Well, at least it throws me off, is what I was going to say. And I just kind of wish that you know, this is the thing. I wish that Glock, instead of trying to guess and trying to get everything correct, which is not really possible for everyone, would do like a cafeteria plan style of, you design your own Glock, they make it for you, they send it to your gun shop or your FFL, and you just go and pick it up and you're happy. Some company needs to do that. I know they would probably really slow production down to have every gun made to order, but can you imagine just the level of satisfaction that you could have if you could design your gun? I mean, put whatever size grip you want on there, whatever, you know, size slide, whatever kind of finish you want on there, whatever color you want on there, whatever caliber you want. I mean, just think about it. It could just go on and on. What kind of grip texture, if you want finger grooves or not, what pound of trigger you want. Do you want a 3-pound trigger? Do you want an 8-pound trigger? Do you want a flat-faced trigger? Do you want one that has serrations? Whatever do you want a threaded barrel? Do you want it in stainless steel, or do you want it in carbon steel? I mean, that would be the coolest. I mean, I'll be like one of the first to line up to make my custom Glock. Because really, ideally, like, you know, truly ideally, the Glock in my head is still pretty much radically different than the Glocks, any Glock that I've seen made. Even though the Glock 45, in my opinion, is the closest, it's still, there's just some things that I just would love to see different, you know? Some different materials being used, different finishes, different colors, just some different executions, you know, even the grip angle. And that's really controversial, but it wouldn't even so much have to be that they change the angle, just get rid of maybe the hump in the back of the grip, or just change the contour a bit. And so there's some things I think that a lot of people are looking for, but they just don't get it from Glock. And I'm not saying that Glock, you know, has to cater for everybody, but can you just imagine, just for a moment, you know, a website that you go on and you just pick, it may have like 50 to 100 questions, and you literally just piece together your gun. And within a month or two, you get it, you know, at your local shop, and you go and pick it up. I mean, that would be worth a premium. I would be willing to actually really save up and pay a bit of a premium over a standard Glock to have that, you know. And like I said, it wouldn't be so much that they would just stop making Glocks overall. It would just have, maybe they would just call it a custom shop, you know, like a Glock custom shop. You know, you just basically handpick what you want. I think that is what is missing right now, because we're getting to the point that there's so many different types of guns out, and you have so many choices. But what about actually making all the choices for you for that gun? Now, there's a lot of places that would take a platform like a Glock 19, for example, which is really common that to work on, and they'll just customize it to the exact specs that you tell them. So that's being done and has been done for a long time. And there's all kind of other models that are done that way. But what about going right from the factory, though? What about having something like that? Something really amazing that you can just go on the website and get it done. And the prices being, somewhat reasonable, too. I mean, I think we all really know that the Glock really isn't that expensive a gun to make. If you research it, I mean, the average Glock only costs between $70 to $90 from those that actually work at Glock. That's what they're saying. I mean, the gun really doesn't cost much. But yet on our side, we're seeing prices that are like $500 to $550 for just the average Glock. So why is there so much of a difference? Because there's a lot of markup. That's just the fact. There are some advertising and some things like that that go into it too. But if you look at like the blue labeled price or the law enforcement or whatever, handgun prices, they're typically like $100 or more off of what you and I could pay, get them for being non-law enforcement. So there's a tremendous profit margin on Glock. And so, I mean, that's why I think that, people that are involved with Glock, they do very well. And I mean, I'm glad for them. It's a very good platform, but it's also one of those things that if they didn't have that much profit and they actually customized the guns to the actual individual, they could take even more market share than they have now. I mean, they could just dominate in ways that no one's ever seen. And they do have the capability, I think, to do this if they really wanted to. It would just be something to consider, Glock, if you're watching the video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. You guys take care.